Hello, the Rural View podcast listeners. I am coming to you in a very bittersweet way. This is the second recording that Bob and I recorded back in December. And if you didn't listen to the episode before this, we did unexpectedly lose Bob in January. He passed away at the beginning of the year. And so hopping into studio has been very bittersweet. A lot of reflection on just some good laughs and some good memories with a lot of folks from the agriculture community with Bob. Also just doing a lot of reflection on the things that I learned from Bob. And again, just a lot of laughs. Had a lot of fun with Bob. I was thinking about one of the times we met up prior to launching the podcast, and we had sat down and had lunch. We met for lunch in the Plover area, and we were chatting and all of a sudden I looked at my watch and I said, "Oh my gosh, Bob, I need to go. We've been sitting here for more than 2 hours." And I like to joke with him that he was on retirement time, but I was not. And we joked about that a lot. So this episode is an ironic one, I think, just because it's about mental health. At our annual meeting back in December, we sat down with Karen Endres from the Farm Center and had a really good conversation about just all different topics around mental health and really getting down to, just some tough topics. And it's a really good episode. And after Bob passed, I thought a lot about it. This episode is a special one, and I really want people to be able to hear this story, and I know that Bob would have wanted that as well. He dedicated his life to sharing the stories of Wisconsin farmers and those associated in the agriculture community, and this story is no different. So, without further ado, I hope you enjoy the next episode and our very last one with the cherished Bob Meyer.
Whether it's around the country or your town or county, decisions are being made every day that impact real people and real communities. Welcome to the Rural View, where we open the window for you to view Wisconsin farmers and rural residents and get a glimpse into the challenges they face. We welcome you to the Rural View. I'm Bob Meyer, along with Amy Eckelberg, and our guest today is Karen Endres, Karen with the Farm Center. And I guess, first off, Karen, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into this.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me today. So I have been working at the Wisconsin Farm Center for about 4.5 years as the Farmer Wellness Program Coordinator. Sounds like a big, long title, but I basically connect farmers to mental health resources. And what brought me here to the Wisconsin Farm Center is graduate from UW-Madison from the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences in economics, so ag economics. So really understood that market piece and the challenges that farmers have with our farm markets. And then I did a year at Packerland Packing in marketing and communications. So spent a year in the beef industry. Decided that wasn't really my jam, giving tours of a meat packing facility. Not me, but I did learn I could talk for a long time all the way through rendering without taking a breath. So I was like, I think the communications thing is for me. So I went then back actually to the Department of Agriculture in the marketing division at that time. And I worked with our poultry farms. I worked with dairy farms. I worked with cheese plants, eventually worked in the international area and really opened my eyes. But I was like, I really want to make a difference. So I started working for Alto Dairy Cooperative, where I could have a hands-on, making a difference for dairy farmers. And we had 1,200 dairy farm members at that time at Alto when I started. And I had a great career with Alto Dairy. It was sold to Saputo Cheese back in 2008. So that took me out of a job. And at that time, our dairy farm was growing. My husband's a dairy farmer with his family. And the dairy farm was expanding and growing, and so was our family. So I decided to stay home with my kids, which lasted a couple of months, and thought, gosh, there's got to be something more for me. So I became a personal trainer and a coach. And so I coach track and field, I've coached cross country and really mentoring our youth and handled a lot of mental health issues and concerns with our young student athletes and coaching and mentoring, as well as my adults that I taught fitness to and just the whole wellness world and the mindfulness. And so that got me when this job came open. My kids were of an age that I could jump back into the workforce full time. Our farm was at a point where I could get back to work. And I was like, what better job? Connecting wellness and my love and passion for agriculture. So that's what brought me back to the Department of Agriculture, Trade and Consumer Protection.
How does that extensive background, international marketing, wellness, all of this really has to make you multidimensional in what you can offer to the people you deal with today?
I think the biggest thing I can offer is just some empathy and compassion because I've seen so much. When I was with Alto Dairy, we had farms from the small Amish producer up to at that time, it was big if you had 1,000 cows, right? So I was working and communicating, and then our milk haulers, right? They were out on our farms day in and day out. And I really took an interest in how they were such a connector from the dairy plant to the farm and how we really needed to be inclusive with them on sharing information. And just as we look, and I've talked to small farmers sometimes, their milkman comes in the middle of the night, 2 a.m., because the plants want those the small commingled loads in the middle of the night. And the farmers have lost that connection. They've
And that was an
lost
important connection for you. They were part of the family.
it is. And right, they'd sit outside for 45 minutes, right, while that milk transferred. And yeah, you might have heard some good farm gossip. Of course, what's the neighbor doing, right?
Always.
Always, right? The milk hauler. But it was community. It was someone to share your story with and to talk about how your day was going and someone that understood. And when you lose some of those things as our industries have modernized, and then you bring through the pandemic, right? And the salespeople stopped coming. I always love to tell the story. My husband, he would make me laugh. He always would say, he had a couple of hiding spots when the salespeople came. And it was like, I knew like I was be dashing over here or dashing over there, right? Because they were so busy. And there was a lot of salespeople stopping by. Now, nobody stops by. Now it's the highlight of his day when someone pulls onto the farm because it's now an email or a text message or, they're getting information that way. And it's not the personal connection. And that's what our farmers need because we are so isolated in our rural communities.
Are the small farms more susceptible to being isolated than the large farms where there's multiple employees?
No, I don't think so. And it's because the reason I believe this is because the farmers need to talk to people that understand. So even though they're a larger farm and they have employees, they still need the connection of their neighbor that understands that weather front that came through, the neighbor that understands that the milk price is dropping. And the employees is great. You have that, but it's different. And so you still need your connection of people and your network of community. And so I think it's so important. Organizations like Farm Bureau, I always talk about how critical you are as a connector and as a community builder. And that's one thing we have lost in agriculture as we've fewer and fewer farms. We've lost some of the infrastructure in our rural communities. Maybe the feed mill isn't operating anymore. Maybe the hardware store closed. Maybe it's the local restaurant. When some of those things have gone away, those gathering points, COVID also took away a lot of our card groups, our bowling leagues, things like that, right? And that's what we need to recharge. You need those connections. The text, even the phone call is helpful, but you need people. We're meant to be with people.
You need somebody to drive in the driveway once in a while.
You do. And sit on the tailgate of the truck.
Yeah.
And just say, how are you today? What's going on? Or I've noticed some changes on your farm. How are you feeling about that? And we need that. We need that interpersonal connection and that caring of one another. And it's just harder today because we're busier, we're running, and we have so much technology.
I spent some time in a previous life as an ag loan officer. And we were trained to these are some of the things to watch for when you're on the farm. Is the farm not being kept up as well as it used to be? Are they not as conversational? What are some of the key elements that you talk to people about to if I'm a sales representative calling on farmers, what do I watch for?
That's a great question. And I want everybody to know that there's actually a lot of great training available so that you can become comfortable in what to look for. I'll share a few things, but then go out and get trained. There's question, persuade, refer, which is a suicide prevention. It's an hour, hour and a half, and it's offered for free online multiple times a month. So take that, get comfortable in that. There's also University of Wisconsin Extension offers a program called Comet, which is 2.5 hours, but they're all farm focused. And they talk about these things, just like you mentioned. It's not it's like what has changed on the farm. Maybe they kept the farm pristine, or maybe they kept a lot of stuff around and now it's all cleaned up. It's different. So what you're looking for is different. And I talk to farmers and I say, observation is a farmer's superpower. They walk into a barn of calves and they're like, not feeling well. This is going on. Why? Because they're observing. And so, farmers, you already know how to do this. You just have to open up and pay attention to it, right? They walk in a pen of cows and they're like, ooh, that cow, something's off with her. And so, farmers need to tap into their superpower of observation, right? They need to know, are they not acting? If I ask you, how are you doing today? And you say, fine. That's pretty close, pretty short. But how many of us just walk by with that? A
It's a
lot,
rhetorical question often.
right? Because we feel we should ask instead of fine. Well, can you tell me more? Like more about what's going on with your day, or, what's going on currently? We saw that your dad passed away a month ago. How are things going with that? Like, losing someone who was involved in our farms is really hard on our emotional wellness, because we've not only lost the physical person on the farm, but there's something called ambiguous loss. It's all those little losses. Maybe it was the morning chat you had with that person every day, or maybe it was how they wrote something on, you have a whiteboard, in the office, and they wrote something down in a certain way. You lose all these little things that can really impact our grief. And so it's important that we recognize that. So asking people, really asking and connecting. Maybe the person was very involved. Farmers are super at being involved in their communities, school boards, township boards, or committees. So maybe that person isn't being active anymore. So maybe that's a time to ask. So there's all those things, using that superpower of observation to just take note of what's changed or what's different.
Is there a difference? We see the transition to larger farms, and one of the big transitions is you go from managing cows to managing
Mm.
people. How does that affect their mental well-being where I am now managing people rather than cows?
Well, people talk back. Number one, right?
Yeah.
And so I think there's a big change in that. And I know UW Extension just came out with a program about being the employer of choice. And they just piloted that program because they're recognizing it too, right? Extension's role is to help us train, education,
Right.
things like that. And they're noticing that as well. And oftentimes the employees have a language barrier. So that's a big difference. So you can't just pull up, like you asked that question about, well, they're getting connection, but maybe not, because you're pulling up and you don't know the language. So I think a lot of farmers weren't trained in human resources. That's not a class we took back in my day,
No, we're training cattle.
right?
Yes.
You were trained in dairy science, right? Economics, these sorts of things. You weren't trained in human resources. And then add in a layer of human resources of people who may have a different background. And so, in a different language and different cultural aspects to their world, that we might offend them by doing something just because we didn't know. And so it's become a lot more complex, and it's become very challenging to manage people. And then what if you're managing family? That's a whole nother one, right? As these farms grow, maybe when the farm grew, it was siblings. Well, now those siblings' kids are coming in. So a sibling might be managing a niece or a nephew. Or maybe what if a cousin is managing a cousin? All those get a little complex. And if you don't sit down and define roles and responsibilities, just like we do in our jobs, and really flush out, like, what does that performance look like? What is this person's responsibility? You're leaving them in ambiguity too. Like, it's not good for either side.
You got to set those expectations.
You do to be successful. So I think our farms are going through a lot of those growing pains. And then they go through what we hear about at the farm center a lot is they go through that growing pain of dad handed down the farm to the two brothers and the sister. How do the two brothers and the sister hand down the farm if some don't have people involved in their families?
If the next generation doesn't exist.
Right. Or they exist, they don't want in,
Right.
but someone from my siblings does want in. I draw the pyramid
Yes,
of
I have those
our
visualized.
family trees have gotten wider in managing these farms. And how do we do that in a way that is professional, that makes everybody feel important? And so when we talk about mental health on a large farm, sometimes I see it from that younger generation because they don't know how they fit or they don't know how that transition's going to work. And so they're putting all this time and effort, right? Because we know farming is not 5 days a week. So they're putting in so much work and so much effort to grow these businesses without clarity of how it will be handed down.
What about bringing spouses into the operation? That's why I have brothers who are third generation operations, sons and granddaughters in it. How do you bring the spouses in, or do you keep the spouses independent of the operation?
I don't think there's a right or a wrong way, but it's how do we communicate it? It's really being upfront in communications. At the farm center, part of my program is we offer online support groups. And if you would have asked me, if you would have said when I started, I would have been like, that is not going to work. I'm sorry. But farmers are not going to get on a platform and talk. Like, it's not going to work. It works. It works. And we just started a new group a year ago because we have peer leaders. So we have farmers that are on there that are trained to lead the groups, as well as a licensed clinical social worker. But one of the things that we do, one of our groups, the new group that started in November of 2024, covers a topic. And we lay out those topics a year in advance. And so they have a presentation by a graduate student at Edgewood College who's in marriage and family therapy. And the topics, so many of them are about communications because we talk about verbal and nonverbal communications. I mean, if you're talking to your brother and they're like, their arms are crossed, they're throwing you that body language, the head's tilted, maybe they're looking at their phone. That's not good nonverbal communication. That's not going to work. You're not feeling valued in that conversation. And I think with our younger generation, they're so used to having that phone, right? So they're like, we're at the staff meeting on the farm and they're like scrolling. Probably the older generation is going to be like, that's not going to go over. So then you get some frustration, some anger, and those emotions don't play out very well. They're not appropriate in our business meetings, right? Could you imagine if we in our business meetings, how farmers sometimes talk to the people they work with? Not good, right? But that's how they were trained to manage. It's not their fault. The generation before them, probably their father yelled at them to get something done, right? Had an expectation. And the younger generation has a little bit different feelings about that.
In the multi-generational operation where you have children and spouses and so on, what about if one of those is becoming unresponsive? What are some of the signs? Should a family try to solve that within the family or address it from outside?
I really feel like they should. It depends on the relationship. Every family is unique, but I think it's helpful to not have a family member involved in trying to help them, letting them know the resources are available. I mean, it's coming from a place of love and respect. Maybe they're noticing they're not getting out of bed. They're not taking interest in the activities they used to. These are all signs. Maybe, unfortunately, they're using substances. We do live in Wisconsin. Substance use is higher than I think we'd like to admit on our farms. And they're seeing beer cans in the barn, right? Because maybe they're hiding it from their family at home. So these are some things that we probably, even myself, I'm not trained to handle that. But there are professionals out there that are willing and wanting to work with farmers. And I think that's the most important thing. When a farmer calls me, I already know they've waited way too long to reach out. They're desperate. They're low when they call me, typically, because things are bad. And all I say is, it's just an honor that you called me and can trust me to help you connect with a mental health professional. That's not me, but I have a whole group of people. Some of those people, I have a great marriage and family therapist in Eau Claire who grew up on a dairy farm. I have one, Megan Wolf with Soul Good Counseling. She's in Southwest Wisconsin, out of Schulzberg. She grew up on a beef and hog operation. We have people that understand farming because a farmer does not want to go in. We know the biggest stressor of Wisconsin farmers is time pressure. So if they're going to take the time to have this appointment, they do not want to hear they're going to need to take a day off because that's not going to work.
Yep.
It's not
Not
happening.
not
Yeah,
happening.
happening.
Right? They're going to get mad. And they do. They call me and they're like, don't send me to one of those because I'm not doing it. But we can also, the pandemic did bring us the beauty of telehealth, right?
Much more reliant, much more trusting of it than what we were.
Correct, right? So my providers provide telehealth and in person. And that's what's amazing because you can connect with a provider. One provider does it. So she's like, I've talked to people in their tractor. I've talked to people in their truck, in their office. It just wherever they feel comfortable. I have another provider when she specializing in life transitions. So that could be, think of any transition in your life. Maybe it's sending your kids to college. Maybe it's a divorce. Maybe it's a retirement. Maybe it's a death. We all go through multiple life transitions. And she worked with a dairy farmer who did not have anyone in his family that wanted to take over the farm. She went out and walked the land with him and said, you're telling me you have to retire. Your body can't take it anymore. And I need to come and I need to see and be with you to help you through what's next for you. And so my providers go above and beyond. I mean, they know she walked the land with him. He did sell the farm. He's still living right next to it. So another farmer is farming it.
So what did she find? What was
She
revealed?
she just really needed to know. He just really needed to know that it was okay. It's okay to end his farm because it doesn't change that it's still his legacy, right? I think a farmer thinks retirement, I've ended the legacy, it's over. And I think our mental health providers just help them understand it's not really the end. You're just moving on to a new phase in life. You still accomplished all of this on your farm, and that's still your legacy. You don't have to farm until you die. You can farm until you're ready to transition to something different. And that farmer is doing really, really well. He's doing amazing, but he had someone to talk to. He had someone that let him know it was okay.
One other thing I just thought of while you're talking, Karen, is I think another thing about telehealth that's just so beneficial is I think about small towns. And I think about, I know sometimes when I drive by the bar or the store, I can pick up people's vehicles. So I'm thinking about farmers' trucks, or if they're at the therapist's office, people are going to know. So I think that's also a huge benefit. And I don't know if you've seen that for factual truth, but in my mind, that has to be a big perk.
It's a really big perk. And the other part, I ran into this, my first client at the farm center. I'm so excited I get to help someone. My second week there, and we had our, we're the state. So, we had our standard operating procedure, and it was, what county are they in? What cities are they near? Send them out a list. The farmer called me back 2 weeks later and he's like, this is not going to work. And I was like, well, why? It's like, the first one I called, married to my cousin. The second one I called was a child of a friend. And they're like, this is not going to work. We can't, right? Because it's
Welcome
that small
to rural
town.
America.
Yeah, we're all related to each other.
So not only the big S with stigma
Yes.
of having your vehicle there, but you're likely to know the local therapist. So that's not going to work because that's a conflict of interest. So telehealth is amazing for that because you can connect. I have farmers that will drive because farming, people to people is important in agriculture, right? Farmers have done business forever on a handshake. I've had farmers drive 2 hours to go see their selected provider just one time, just to meet face to face. And then the rest of their appointments are telehealth. So we're flexible like that because if that really makes you comfortable, let's make it work. Let's figure it out. Let's do it. I mean, I've had some of my providers meet part way. and they'll meet and they'll have the meeting. A lot of our libraries have private conference rooms, things like that. So you're at the library.
Who knows
So
what
be
you're
it. They
doing,
like
yeah.
to read. Right. So there are ways. So
Mm.
I definitely tell people, like, don't be scared. And our program is free, 100% free at the Farm Center, and it's confidential. So I'm not here to share anyone's information. I'm not here to talk about any clients, and it's also protected in open records as well. So open records laws do
Yeah.
exist so that our states can, you, as a citizen, you can go in and look at information that's being conducted by our state government. But our program is protected under the legislation that information is blocked.
You look at one of the big issues I think that I see is the finances are so magnified from what they were a generation ago. My parents, started farming in the Great Depression. I grew up with you paid for things when you bought them, and now you look at the debt load. And so do you have farmers saying, well, gosh, dad was debt free in how many years and the farm was paid for and there's no way in the world that's going to happen with today's operation. That has to add a lot of additional pressure on that producer of today.
Absolutely. With the study, we did some focus groups back in 21, and financial pressures and management were two other top stressors. And so I think it's different world. Usually it's multiple family members coming together, right, to balance some of that debt. But it is very different and it's scary and it's hard to wrap our minds around some of that. And so one of the great things, the Farm Center was started in the 1980s under the
The
farm
farm
financial crisis.
Right.
And we have really just evolved through time to what farmers need. So we have consultants at the Farm Center, again, free and confidential, that'll come out to a farm and sit down and say, do you want someone, a neutral person, because we're not your banker, so we have no stake in the game, to go through your finances with you and just take a look? Maybe give you some ideas of how you could rebalance your debt load. Maybe give you some ideas of maybe you do some custom cropping. Maybe you also run some beef cattle. Maybe you do some other things, and we can look at each of those buckets individually and say which ones are making you money, which ones aren't making you money. And so the Farm Center offers that as well as farm transition, succession. We also offer mediation. Federal government offers mediation program, and we have that for the state of Wisconsin. So we have volunteer mediators across the state that'll work. Maybe it's a dispute with someone on your farm. Maybe it's a dispute with a neighbor on a fence line. Maybe it's a dispute with FSA on a loan rejection. We can work through our mediation program so you can hopefully avoid anything legal, because that's a huge cost. So we have these programs that help farmers and their families and kind of tackle some of those stressors that you mentioned, as well as on the farmer wellness program. So it's a really nice balance in our office, and we really are fortunate that that's a job. I mean, everybody says, well, how do you go out and educate on the program? I'm like, well, it's free.
Yeah.
That's that is a big seller and
Can't beat the price.
and confidential,
Right.
right? So it's great. So we do get a lot of phone calls at the Farm Center, and we're here to help. And Secretary Romansky has been such a great supporter of the Farm Center, and we are so fortunate that he keeps farmer wellness, top of mind when he's out presenting, as well as all the programs we offer at the Farm Center. We're very thankful for.
I'm just kind of curious, Karen. I see you out and about all the time. You guys do such a great job. But what does a day in life look like for you? I've always thought about that. Your team works really hard. You're getting phone calls at different times of the day sometimes. So what does that look like? Just give us a glimpse into that.
Yeah. So at the Farm Center, I think we all pretty have similar days. What we do, if we're in the office or working remotely, either way, we answer the phone. That's number one. You call the Farm Center.
And most important.
We make it a priority to pick up the phone calls when we are in the office, because we know that's really important not to leave another message. So we do our best. We rotate. We all get that phone call, and whoever can pick it up, we pick it up. And so between that, preparing presentations, talking to farmers, and honestly, when a farmer calls the Farm Center, we all have the same mentality as we drop whatever we're doing. We drop it. That farmer is our priority for the moment. I know I surprise farmers all the time. They're like, I can't talk until 6 o'clock tonight. I'm like, perfect. I'll call you then. It's when they need us. And we all know because we've all been in agriculture. We have over 100 years of collective experience. We've all been involved in agriculture, are still involved in agriculture, production agriculture. So we just really make it a priority. If a farmer calls, it's our duty to answer that phone call for them. A lot of the calls come in, we're searching for answers. That's a big thing about what we do at the farm center. You call. I know we got a call recently, reindeer. I have no idea. Reindeer? Like, do you need a
Santa?
license to have a reindeer?
Santa?
You know what? You do. It's like if you have domesticated deer, same thing for reindeer. So I learned. We get a lot of calls about a lot of topics, and we just act as a resource to try to help them. But most importantly, in between those calls, our staff is working, our financial transition staff, mediation staff. They're working on we call them cases, but they're working behind the scenes, getting the information. Maybe they're working on a farm's financials. Maybe they're looking for the right mediator. I once got to back up one of my staff people and sit in on a mediation. I didn't know much about it. And I was like, that was fascinating. Just to be that neutral party trying to get a compromise so they can avoid litigation. Right. And I met one of our mediators. We had a farm come in who was having this whole farm succession discussion, and there was many differing opinions on the farm, shocking. And they were thinking of mediation, which in mediation, all parties have to agree to come to the table. And so we were talking and we were like, well, if they do come to the table, what mediator can handle this? So I sat in with one of our mediators and just explained the situation. They're incredible. They are so good at what they do. I'm like, and you're free? Like, you're really free? Like, they are really good at what they do. And one of the biggest lessons, and she wrote an article in one of your publications in Farm Bureau about how it's not who is the problem. A lot of times because we're family, we're like, no, it's you, you're the issue. It's what's the problem. Maybe it's how your business is run. Maybe it's your management isn't in place. You don't have job descriptions. Maybe that's the problem because you're not knowing who's accountable to what. So it's not who's the problem. We're all human. None of us are perfect. What is the problem? And once we kind of take it off of our personal shoulders and just put it on the table as to what, these mediators can do that, and they can help families. They can help us. And it's really pretty amazing.
Follow up to that, obviously you're very passionate about what you do. So why are you passionate? What motivates you to keep showing up for our Wisconsin farmers?
I love Wisconsin agriculture, and it's because of the people. The people I get to meet in Wisconsin agriculture are truly special. We feed not only our families, not only our communities, the country, the world. What bigger calling is that? To create, I mentioned I was a personal trainer, right? Part of that is taking care of our bodies and being healthy. And we're making those healthy products on the farm, but often we're not taking care of ourselves. Often we're not packing that healthy lunch or taking that water, right? We got some great well water out there that tastes really good, but we're not taking the time to take care of our physical selves, which then impacts our emotional selves. And so my passion, not only being in production agriculture with my husband, but also just my passion for farmers and what they do day in and day out and the sacrifices they make so that we can put food on our tables. It's pretty incredible calling. And so that's what makes me show up day in and day out, is to just knowing how hard they are working to make sure we have food.
Absolutely. And I know at Wisconsin Farm Bureau, we've been really trying to help just get the resources out to farmers, because we know that mental health is just this very critical topic that we need to keep fighting the stigma and keep talking about. So do you want to just talk about a few ways that we've collaborated in the last couple of years?
We need partners like Farm Bureau. I've mentioned UW Extension, Farmer Angel Network, all of us together. And what was most shocking to me when I came into this role at the Farm Center was the collaboration. If you are doing a program, Farm Neighbors Cares is awesome. I love that program. You guys have a sticker out there that you developed for our local county sheriffs that they can scan, and it goes to a webpage with resources for farmers. I can't do it all by myself. You guys can't do it all by yourself, right? Farmer Angel Network can't do it all by themselves. And it's just such a collaboration. When we go out to an event, I'll bring Farmer Angel Network materials. When they go out to an event, they'll take my materials, because we can't do it all on our own. And I think that's what inspires me as well and motivates me is that we can all work together and there are no territorial issues. I go out and speak with UW Extension all the time. I'll sit on a panel with Farmer Angel Network. I work with people across the state and we're all there to help each other. And that's what is amazing is because, and everybody I work with, like you guys, we all just want to help farmers. And so that's what's incredible. And Farm Neighbors Cares every year when you guys go out and do like your campaign to take out meals, harvest meals, spring planting meals, the difference you're making, I can't visit all the farms. So the difference your county groups are making by delivering and putting my postcard in there or my information on our 24/7 line, that's just continuing to spread the message. We all are in it together.
Yeah, our County Farm Bureau members have been doing just a rock star job of putting together those just bags and snacks and trying to get out there to make sure that our farmers just know that they're not alone during really critical times. So we're really proud of our members. They've been doing a really good job with that.
It's incredible. And I know I've heard some of the stories about being out there. I know Secretary Romansky went out one time.
Yep, he got to go on a visit last year, I think.
Yeah. And it's just how good you feel that you can do that and the difference you can make by giving your time.
Showing up, right?
By showing up, by just being someone to listen. We don't need to be anything more than ourselves and just showing up for Wisconsin farmers and their families because it's hard out there. It's tough. Our days are long. Not many people want to be out there when it's below zero and we have how much, 12 inches of snow and you're trying to get through it and your animals are getting sick and you're having to feed more and it's a lot of work. And so just being together and letting people know that, you know what, you matter. That's what's important.
Yeah, and you're seen like we see you.
And you're not alone.
And you are not alone. And I always like to tell people, so that first client I told you about, that I refined how I now get information to our farmers. Right now I call the providers ahead of time. I see what their wait times are. We're getting most farmers in for their first visit in 5 to 10 days, which is pretty incredible. And, so I'm talking to the providers, I'm talking to the farmers, but he taught me so much about how to help people. And then he came back to me probably 2 years later and he's like, Karen, I just want you to know I was in the barn this weekend with my son and I was laughing. And my son said, Dad, you haven't laughed for a year. And so I was laughing and he said, I want you to go out and tell every farmer out there that there is hope. And so I take his message and I spread it out there to be like, this farmer did not think there was hope. And now he knows that there is. And you just have to take some time and do some things to help yourself so that you can be the best farmer you can be for your farm and your family.
Awesome. Well, I don't think I have any other questions.
Oh,
Did you
that's
have anything?
excellent.
Yeah, I really love that message and just really appreciate you for all the work you do. Of course, all of you at the Farm Center, but also just taking time for us to help promote these efforts and just to remind people that they aren't alone and it's okay to not be okay.
Exactly. And don't forget, call the Farm Center. Call our 24/7 line. Sometimes that's all you need. And there's experienced stress counselors that know agriculture that are going to pick up that call. So that's 1-888-901-2558. And again, it's answered 24/7 because you don't know when that feeling of overwhelming is going to hit you. You don't know when that panic attack is coming. And so if you know you can make a phone call and at least talk to somebody, it's helpful. Otherwise, call us at the Farm Center directly at 800-942-2474 and reach out. If we're in the office, we're going to pick up the phone. Otherwise, no, we're going to get back to you. That is our job. And we will get back to you because we care and we want to make sure that you are supported.
Awesome.
It's not only your job, it's your mission.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks again for all you do and thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.